there are three layers here: applications, operating system, and the network. The reason the internet works so well is because all three of those things are open. And what you have right now is AT&T and Steve Jobs and Apple in collusion to shut down all three layers at once. And because it's sexy, because it's, you can make some money from it, we're falling for it. The network should be open and free. The application level should be open and free. You should be able to install whatever you want on the device you paid for. And you should be able to use your network and data minutes however you please because you bought it. These Apple fanboys are like, if you don't like it, don't buy the product. Well, how about I buy the product and I like it and I use it how I want since I paid for it? Which seems like a pretty, you don't have to be an Ayn Randian, Atlas Shrugged, nutcase, no offense. You don't have to be at the fringe to say like, oh my God, you should be able to do whatever you want with your device that you paid for. If you buy any item, you deserve to use it however you want. And that's the rub here, and that's the cognitive dissonance that's occurring right now. We love this device, it's the greatest one ever, and it sucks to be a user of it at these times. But it's great to use it at these times. And what we have to be able to do is hold those two conflicting ideas at once in our brains, which is something that Apple fanboys are not capable of, just like religious zealots are not capable of without having a realistic discussion about any issue that they have already made their decision on. So if you've made your decision, Steve Jobs can do no wrong, you can't have this discussion of, I would like to use a different browser than Safari, I would like to use Google Voice, I would like to use a Starbucks application, I'd like to be able to plug a different MP3 player into iTunes, or whatever the case may be. And so I think that's what we have to get comfortable with, and I think Apple will respond. Steve Jobs is a good guy, he's brilliant, that company wants to do the right thing. But they're not getting the feedback loop of enough. They did iTunes, they did, closed store, closed MP3 players are allowed on it, and we all went along with it. Then the iPhone came out, we all went along with it. Now they're kicking people out of the iTunes store. You get no explanation of why you were kicked out. It takes weeks. They're really slowing down the industry. They're slowing down the industry. We should not support one person being the approval process. BlackBerry doesn't do that to you. Android doesn't do that to you. The web doesn't do that to you. Open standards will build a bigger business that is more profitable for everybody equally.
Okay, Jason, I'm really confused now.
Me too.
So this week, Apple's evil. Last week, Google is evil. Is Microsoft our friend now? Who's the good guy?
Yeah, let me give you the scorecard. I have the answer to this question. As chairman of the internet, I have made some decisions on this issue. And my ruling will come down as such. Microsoft has gotten their ass kicked by the internet, and that ass whooping has resulted in them taking a more open stance to things. Now, does that mean the Xbox 360 platform is open? No, because they can get away with it. But it does mean that their operating system and their software, they're embracing a little more of the open source because they have to. Google uses all open source technology. They allow exporting of everything they do. They are a scary company in some ways because they're so good at what they do, and that we all embrace their technology and use their search engine and use Gmail, whatever. But the fact is, you can switch at any time. Nothing is stopping anybody here from changing the 5 letters of Google to the 4 letters of Bing or whatever search engine you want to use. So there is no lock-in. So this whole argument against Google is sort of farcical. It's just based on their success, with the exception of privacy. They are holding data a little too long. 18 months, it's unnecessary to hold our information for that long. We should have the ability with one click on Google to say, keep none of my data. That is our right. We should be able to click once. And it shouldn't be, don't use the service. We should have, as individuals, that right. Because guess what? That's what the EU does. And if you look, Apple, when they behave outside the United States, and Google, when they behave out of the United States, they behave a little bit better. If you're in Australia, you buy the iPhone, then you pick a provider. And the same is true in a lot of countries in Europe. You buy your phone, then you pick a provider. That's the way it should be. And in the long term, Apple would make more money. How many people here don't have an iPhone? Raise your hand if you don't have an iPhone. Now, good. For the people who don't have an iPhone, how many people don't have an iPhone because it's connected only to AT&T? Exactly. Now, with one more question. Thank you for participating, crowdsourcing this discussion. Makes better content for free. How many of you would buy an iPhone if it was available on your provider? Okay, those are Apple's customers that will not take their money. You know, this is what they should do. They're taking the short-term money from AT&T, and they should be taking the long-term money from all of us, and they should have an open platform. So, hey, listen, everybody's a little bit evil at the end of the day.
Do you think that the revolt against Apple and the negative feedback will only happen once they actually do those things? I mean, you say what you foresee happening logically, but do you only see it once it's so bad?
Generally speaking, the frogs are being boiled 1 degree at a time, yeah. And some people are realizing it's getting hot, and the people who are realizing it's getting hot in here are the people who use Google Voice. Anybody here use Google Voice? Okay. And anybody here use Google Voice on an iPhone? Right. So those are the two people who actually have had the issue. But we will all have the issue if Apple continues the way they are. And it's just, when the tablet comes out, then people will start to realize it. You can't get Flash, and then, they're going to support their, video codec, and just we spent. It's heartbreaking to anybody who has been part of building the internet industry to watch all that work in open source and standards and the suffering and the development and the joy of building the open internet, to watch it be just decimated and destroyed by what Steve Jobs is doing. His goal is to make all the applications go through him in the world. And it will happen on your desktop, I guarantee it, unless we tell him no. You'll open up your desktop someday, and if you want to download software from the internet, instead of just downloading whatever the heck you please, it's going to be go to the App Store and get an approved application. So you want to load something that doesn't go through, and he's going to take his 30% or whatever he takes in the Apple iStore, in the App Store. It's coming to the desktop. Why wouldn't it? The question is, for the people in the back of the room, if the product's great, is anybody going to care? We all like the sort of jacuzzi that we're boiling in, and that's true to a certain extent. What I think will play out is not that you'll get the top-level people defecting from the platform, the sort of, elite tech folks will say, like, enough, Cory Doctorow or, Mike Arrington or Owen Malik will say, like, I'm not going to support that. Peter Rojas from Engadget, whatever. But what will happen is, I believe in free markets. So Android and other open platforms will make more sense to people. And what will happen is you'll want to put an advanced feature on your iPhone application, and it won't work. Because maybe that competes a little bit with something Steve's doing and Apple's doing. And you'll say, you know what? I'll put it on Android, and I'll have my advanced feature there, and there'll be more phones available with Android, and you'll be able to take those phones and put them on any network. So I think the free market will work it out, and then Steve will open up his platform a little more. But we as users and consumers have the ability to impact what Apple does, especially developers. So every developer should write a blog post today. They should tweet today, enough. I should be able to make any application run on an iPhone without going through the App Store. Now, those people should not get customer support for those applications. There should be like a little button. You are going to load something from the internet that hasn't gone through the approval Apple process. Are you an adult, and do you understand that you may have to reformat your computer and this could be a virus? Yes, I'm an adult. I understand when you download software, it could suck. And it could be spyware. Boom. So the question is, isn't it up to the application developer to make an ecosystem that makes things work and interstate? Yes, it is. And closed is never as good as open. That's what we've learned as an industry. And we're probably going to have to relearn that lesson as Facebook, which is a somewhat closed group, and iPhone, which is totally closed, are going to make us realize. The question is, will the sexiness of this product push that realization out 5 years and slow the industry down for 5 years? And that's what's going to happen. We're going to take all this progress we've made and throw it out the window, and we're all going to build these iPhone applications and then go, why did I spend 10 grand doing that or 20 grand doing that? We should not support the App Store and iPhone applications until they make a very clear process of putting any application we want on our phones that we paid for and that we spent the money to develop, period. Apple needs to make this commitment to developers and companies should not invest in the platform unless they do.